Welcome back to another edition of the What's the Play podcast. I am Christian here with Brian and JB, the Celtics trio, the reigning champions. And we are here with our off-season episode. We told you guys we'd be back and more consistent, and this is the second episode that we were dropping within the last week. So clap it up for us. We're trying to be more consistent here, so we're trying to do that here for you all. All right. So right now we're gonna do our all-season review for what has happened so far. There have been a few trades that have happened. There was the draft that happened a few nights ago. And what is happening today is day one of free agency. So we're going to give our quick reactions to what has occurred in free agency so far. Then we'll give a few predictions on some of the players who have not landed already or who we already know where they're going to go, but we're just going to give some topics on that. And then hopefully we'll get some breaking news during this episode. We are recording prior to Paul George, the best free agent on the market, signing so far. It's rumored it's Philadelphia, Orlando, Golden State was rumored. It's ruled out that he will return to the Clippers, so that's not a possibility. So it'll be interesting to see where Paul George goes. But we're gonna get started with the NBA draft. We gave you guys a draft preview episode, so now let's quickly review what we saw in the draft on what was that Wednesday and Thursday, 2 nights this year. So Brian, I'm gonna start with you. From the first night, what pick stands out the most for you personally?
Pick that stands out the most. Um, I'm gonna say Nikola Topic to OKC at 12 stood out the most because we were. I think all of us collectively we had a feeling that he might slide a little bit, but I don't think we felt like he was gonna slide that far. Matas Mazelis was another guy that slid a lot farther than we expected. Um, so yeah, I think Topic to OKC makes sense because with where OKC is right now, he's more of like a upside play considering considering where they are and considering how many picks they have. So if anything, I mean he could be used as a trade piece later if necessary. But I think after moving Josh Giddey to Chicago, I think it makes sense to have a guy like Topic if you're willing to bring him along slowly and allow him to recover and do other things. A guy because you have a guy like Cason Wallace who can man the bench, but you probably want him to be more of a scoring option than the lead playmaker. So having a guy like Topic who can man that second unit probably helps. Um, Especially if you end up having to elevate Cason to the starting lineup later on down the line. Probably won't happen, but in the event that they have to, you have a secondary playmaker. So I think that swing. I think just taking a swing for the fences there and banking on Topic's potential is what made that the most surprising. Well, not the most surprising pick, but that was the pick that stood out to me the most.
I think your Case and Wallace point. I think that's not as unrealistic as you may think, considering their current roster. I mean, of course, Alex Caruso is probably going to step right into that starting shooting guard position. But if either of those guards have extended injury, I think Case and Wallace fits the best next to either one of them. Just because of his ability to not only operate as your true point guard, but he's a good off ball guard currently. And so if Caruso goes down for a long amount of time, or if Shea knock on wood goes down for a decent amount of time, he could plug and play with either one of those guys and take on some of the playmaking duty while also being in that catch and shoot role, while also being a very good point of attack defender, help defender, all that stuff. So you can see Case and Wallace having a big role in the starting lineup potentially in some games this year. But JB, do you have a pick that stands out for you from the NBA draft?
Yeah, I would say the Rob Dillingham pick, and probably not for the
Mm.
reason that you think. I like the move that the Timberwolves made. I think it was a great move to get a point guard for the future. Given that, as a Mike Conley fan, I understand that his time is coming to an end soon, but I'm not exactly sure why the Spurs felt the need to trade the eight pick when the roster is still. Yes, they have Wimby, but their core is still a little bit older, slightly older than Wimby's timeline. Um, and this trade wasn't also, I don't think it was done in efforts to advance this timeline either. Like, let's say it was a win now trade, or I can probably swallow that, easier. But Yeah, I don't get it. Trading for a 2031 pick, uh, knowing Timberwolves' trajectory, which with Ant, we assume they still be pretty good if he's still there at that time. I don't really understand that. So that was very intriguing to me.
I th- I
Yeah, I
think
agree. I think the return that the Spurs got, I understand the move, trading out of the first round. If there's nobody you want, I feel like they could have got a better return. The 2031 pick being unprotected is cool, but it's like that's what 7 years out, and
Mhm.
I understand this could be considered a weak draft, but I think when you trade out from the 8 spot in a draft, and the team still does have their own first round pick. Minnesota still had what pick 25, 26 around that range. I feel like at the bare minimum, you should at least get that pick. Now, if
Mhm.
you completely just want to trade out of the draft and just move on, then maybe you get a pick within the next couple of years. But if Minnesota doesn't have that to give to you, then maybe Minnesota isn't a team that you trade with.
Right.
I do feel like there was more that they could have gotten for that eighth pick. And like everybody said, this isn't the strongest draft, so I can understand trade value being slightly lower than normal. But first round picks, 5 to 6 years down the line, and for an eighth overall pick is kind of weak value. So I agree with you. I think the Timberwolves got a steal. Just talking about the player itself, they were in the Western Conference Finals and got what many considered a top five, top 10 player in this class, um, who has the upside of potentially making All Star team just with his play style and scoring upside. He could potentially give you 20 to 24 points a game in his future, or you could just simply have one of the better 6 men of the year. I mean, 6 men in the league. So I mean, it's a high upside player, but I think has a decent floor just because of his scoring prowess. And so this was a good deal for Minnesota. I was gonna say Rob Dillingham for my player as well, but
Mhm.
since you took that one, I think the pick that stood out to me the most when we were watching the draft um, is the Hornets taking TJ
mm,
at 6. Um, I don't necessarily think he's a bad prospect. I just think they could have maneuvered the draft a bit better at that point. You had Memphis, who was desperate to get a starting center in that first round, clearly, because I feel like most people could agree that they reached on Zach Edey at 9. I think for the Hornets, I think if you swap that pick from pick 6 to pick 9, I think it still may look like a reach to some people taking TJ at 9. But if you can get him at 9 instead of 6, while also getting draft comp from the Grizzlies who want to move up to 6 to
mm.
jump the Blazers, I feel like that looks better. So I don't know if they weren't able to maneuver that the correct way because I'm pretty sure the Grizzlies had Klingon higher on their board than Edey. I don't know if the Hornets asking price was too high or if they just weren't interested in moving the pick. But I do think TJ would have been there at pick 9. But taking him at 6 was a bit rich for me. And I don't really, it doesn't really feel like a pick that is necessarily going to pay out immediately. And I don't want to say the Hornets is a team where you have to see dividends immediately, but you'd like to see players who fit better around your immediate core players like LaMelo and Brandon Miller. And with Brandon Miller at the 2-3 spot, 2-3 JB.
Okay,
Um,
I like T. I like
TJ
T.
is a TJ is a solid 3-4, but you already I think for the most part people probably think they're going to bring back Miles Bridges, who's probably going to take that spot as well. So it's like, are you drafting a bench player at 6 and hoping that he develops into a starter when you could have simply just moved back? And then if he's not there, then maybe you take somebody else. Because I don't think anybody would have been mad if you move back to 9 and then you take a Cody Williams or you take a Matas, who
Mm.
may fit more naturally day one than TJ. And I think TJ might take a little bit of a minute to get used to the NBA game, get used to shooting the ball off ball. Big step for him. So I'm interested to see how he fits into that team, especially being that 6th pick.
I like both of you guys' selections. I just wanted to go back to the Rob Dillingham trade real quick. I think for the Spurs, I think it's partially just a belief, not a belief, but it shows a vote of confidence for Stephon Castle, even though he may not be seen as like their lead guard of the future. I think they saw him as a guy that maybe could bounce between the 1 and 2 depending on responsibilities. Also, I'm not saying that Trey Jones keeps you from picking a guy like Rob, but I think with Trey there, um, and the and well, I think having Trey there, picking Stephon, and then making the move that they just made to sign Chris Paul to a 1 year, $11 million deal. Even though I don't think they had to, I don't know if they had the foresight to know that Chris Paul was going to be available, but I guess they did. But I guess having two potential lead guards already, and then having Castle in the mix, I think they might have felt like Rob may not have had enough, wouldn't have had the opportunity necessary to thrive in their organization. Because even though I believe he can play off the ball, I think he's a guy that thrives like most players with the ball in his hands. So I think that was the thought process behind making that trade.
I think another thing is with JB's point of the value of the trade. I think that eighth pick, the Spurs were a team that coming into this all season, a lot of people felt like they were a team that could take a swing on one of the top guards available on the market using this draft capital that they had. They had the fourth pick and they had the eighth pick coming into the draft, and it felt like they could have made better use of this eighth pick as an asset to go get a higher profile player. I mean, you already mentioned that they signed Chris Paul already in free agency, or he intends to sign with them in free agency. But I feel like there was bigger names if you want to buy into this whole we need to start winning with Wemby now. And I feel like the eighth pick could have been used in tandem with something else instead of. I think the eighth pick holds more value than the 2031 and 2030 picks to other teams. And like I understand it's a weak class in general, right? But if you're packaging the eighth pick with the contracts or whatever to go get a Trey Young or go bring back a Dejounte Murray or stuff like that, Brandon Ingram, whoever you want to go get, that's better value than trading back 7 years. That's basically what they just did. They traded back in the draft 7 years. They didn't get any current value for. They traded for a 12-year-old. That's what That's basically what they did. And that's not even guaranteed. Like JB said, Minnesota could very well be at least mediocre. Anthony
Yeah,
Edwards
Yeah.
probably should still be there. If he's still there, they're probably not picking eighth. So you traded back 7 years for what, a 20th pick in the 2031 draft? I don't know. I mean, I don't like to question Greg Popovich, but it was a questionable decision.
What SVP say?
No, no, no,
no,
no,
yeah, we'll leave it
no,
Okay,
there.
gotta
no.
trust the scouting department. Just trust the scouting
Yeah,
department.
but
They know what they're doing.
I agree with you there, CT. Especially since as many YouTubers have pointed out, like you if you're San Antonio, you already have Atlanta. I mean, yeah, if you're San Antonio, you already have Atlanta's picks from the Dejounte Murray trade. So if anything, you could have added 8 to those picks and maybe got. Maybe they were trying to negotiate that already with Atlanta, but and maybe Atlanta just didn't feel that this class was that strong to where there was more than maybe one or two guys that they wanted. But possibly you try to package 8 and give Atlanta their picks back to try to get either Dejounte or Trey Young. So, we'll see.
I have a quick question about the
Yo,
draft. So of course, as we all know, Atlanta had the first pick, Spurs had the fourth and the eighth. How did the Spurs get the fourth and eighth pick?
whose pick was
So the fourth was theirs. Was Atlanta bad this year? Well, no, it wasn't
Atlanta,
Atlanta.
no,
Atlanta
Atlanta's pick was their own.
yeah,
Hold on,
they had
let
the
me
first
see.
pick. So yeah,
Let me go to
Whose
the
pick was
draft.
that?
I'm trying to think who they would have.
I can't think who they traded with
I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm
recently.
trying to see Toronto, the Jakob Pertl trade.
Mm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So the
oh,
pick was top
oh,
6 protected.
huh.
And then they hold the Hawks pick next year, right?
Yep. Or
That's
yeah,
pretty
I think
good.
it's yeah. I think they get the Hawks pick for 2025, and then it's a pick swap after. I can't remember.
That's pretty good from the Yacht trade. They got Keldon Johnson from that too.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
But then
All
you
right, just
turn that into. But when you look at it like this,
You turn it into a
Jakob
yeah,
Pertl for
2031
Kelvin
pick. Yeah.
Johnson, and then first round pick
yeah.
instead of what was the guaranteed number 8 pick. I would have been
No, I
fine
agree.
even if they simply traded back a year. It still isn't the best value because you don't know what the next year's pick is unless you're
Yeah.
trading to a very bad team. Like if you
Yeah,
trade this first round pick back one calendar year, you most cases it's not viewed as a great trade because you don't know the guaranteed value of what you're getting.
Yeah.
But they traded 7 years back, 7 years, and got a
Ooh,
protected pick as well. But it must be
up something
somebody in that
fast.
2031 class, man. They got their eyes on.
Either that or they think Anthony's gonna be gone, like you were saying earlier.
That must be what
So
they hoping for. But we want to move on to the any other first round stuff you guys want to discuss. I think for the most part, I don't think any team had a bad draft. In this first round in particular, I think it was really hard to mess up this draft because it was a bunch of. I'll get to you, but it's a bunch of role players in this class. And I think a lot of teams drafted for fit, which is what I think they should have done. We mentioned a couple reaches earlier. Charlotte could be considered a reach. Memphis taking Edie at 9 could be considered a reach. But then again, those are still teams who could they think they're drafted for fit at that spot. And if it's considered a weak class, maybe teams don't really want to trade up that bad, other than Minnesota, who jumped 20 spots by just giving up a pick 7 years in the future. But JB, you made some groans when I said everybody had a pretty decent draft. What say you?
yeah, I mean, like you said earlier about the Edie deal, man. I don't. The one thing I think about is you're in the West, right? So you're going to face Jokic. So I understand Edie has some value there if you want to get past Jokic, right? Um, we've noticed a trend recently in these 7 foot plus players coming in dominating. So you kind of have to have someone who can kind of match up with them size wise. So I get picking Edie, not at 9 though. So that's why
So
I
kind
just
of
feel
like
like
Charlotte at 6.
exactly like I be mentioning, you're getting players that fit. I get it, but you have such value even in the mid draft. As Christian mentioned before, the 2013 draft was valued as weak, and we've got Giannis, we got Rudy, we got Oladipo, we got numerous players from there that still show value. It's just like you said, a role player draft. So I just think that he could have got more for that and traded down. Um, Especially on the center position, it's probably the most replaceable position in the league. I wouldn't waste the number 9 pick on that. I would have got a great wing, knowing that Zaire Williams hasn't really clicked yet. Could have got Cody Williams, could have got Montez, like you said.
Hmm.
But that's just why I made that noise. Just I feel like the Memphis wasn't a bad draft, but they could have did way better. I would give them like a C minus.
Hmm.
Sure.
Yeah,
But we can
you
move
can move
on
on.
to the most polarizing topic from the draft for most people on social media and in the TV world. The talk of the 55th pick in the NBA draft. The son of LeBron, Bronny James, went to the Los Angeles Lakers at 55. This was worst kept secret in the NBA up to this point. But of course, people still had to get their takes off once it was actually official.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to pass it to you two because I'm interested to see you all's point of view in the whole Bronny James going 55 to the Los Angeles Lakers, this whole thing.
You want to go
What you
first,
guys
JB?
have on Bronny?
I can go first. I've had this discussion actually probably so many times in the past few weeks. I talked about it yesterday, I talked about it today, um, just in passing conversation. And my thoughts on it are, it is what it is, man. That's just how it goes sometimes. I think we all can agree, the majority can agree that talent-wise, Ryan does not match up um, with the talent at the end of the draft pool. Um, However, as I mentioned that most people in the 55 pick don't really stick around the league too long. I think Aaron Wiggins is the most recent player that's really stood out.
Yeah.
I think there's only one other player from the past few drafts that's still in the league now at the 55 spot. But, Brian gets opportunity. And I think, respectfully, if I'm the Lakers, knowing what his dad has done for organization, yes, we'll give your son opportunity. So I get it from that point of view. We all a lot of people, I won't say all, I can't keep generalizing, but a lot of people have gripes about nepotism. It's not going anywhere, it's how it goes. So I feel no different and people complaining about it. People are always going to complain about it. It's just, it is what it is. And I'm excited to see Bronny in Summer League. It's going to sell tickets. It's going to be a lot of hate. And as a certified hater, I can't wait to join them. And that's pretty much how I feel about the topic so far. I'm glad he's doing better health wise. I'll say that. That's
Absolutely.
nice. Yeah.
Like JB, I'm intrigued to see what Bronny looks like in summer league because those stands would definitely be packed for those games. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I get the people that are like, you're potentially taking an opportunity away from a prospect, yada yada yada, all that good stuff. First, we don't know if there are other agents like Rich Paul that were probably pushing for their client, not their client to potentially go undrafted so they can kind of have their pick of the litter. Um, it's pick 50, like JB said, it's pick 55 out of what usually would be 60 picks, but was 58 this year because I think a couple teams forfeited their picks due to tampering, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, if you want to argue something, I guess you could argue that maybe you can find a better penalty than a second round, giving up a second round pick for tampering. So that way you have two more players that have a chance to get drafted to hear their name called. Um,
Mm.
but I don't. Yeah, I understand people. Being upset about the situation. I also understand people saying, "Well, is this really what Bronny wants, or is this just something that LeBron wants to kind of have as like another feather in his cap?" I understand that argument if you want to have that argument on the nepotism front, but I mean, I don't think anybody. Yeah, I don't because it's the 55th pick. If it was like the 17th pick, I can understand people like being a little bit more upset. But the 55th pick for the team that his dad plays on, and his dad is given 20 years to the game and stuff like that. So like I mean it makes sense that he would try to you try to use your pool, especially when you've been talking about trying to play with your sons for years now. So doesn't so I'm not too bent about it, shade about it. I'm kind of indifferent. I just want to see how Bronny does. And I mean, if he doesn't play well, I mean, he just becomes another 55th pick that didn't pan out. So if anything, kind of like Jimmy High Roller highlighted in his video, if Bronny even becomes just like a role player, he's outplayed he's exceeded his expectations as the 55th pick. So I mean, it's not too much to get bent out of shape about, in my opinion.
Good cook.
All right. Here's what I have to say. I think a lot of people, I think two things can be true. I think nepotism is clearly in play. But I think that is okay. LeBron, like everybody said, LeBron has given so much to this game. LeBron has given so much to the Lakers that if he wants his son on the team, they should put his son on the team. And I think the second thing that can be stated is that this is not some unprecedented event. And I'm not talking about him being LeBron's son. I'm talking about him being a former five-star player
Mm.
who may not have lived up to expectations in their freshman year, who gets a second round flyer. This happens more often than a lot of people realize. Just last year, Chris Livingston averaged 6 points a game at University of Kentucky, got drafted 58. 3 years ago, Scotty Lewis averaged 8 points a game at Florida, went 51 in the draft. These are five-star prospects who are drafted strictly based off not their college performance, but what they think could possibly become from high school. Bronny James did not have the best college season, averaged 4-2, coming off of cardiac arrest. I think
Which is
we
the
should
biggest thing.
put. I mean, I don't. But yeah, this is also a player who, coming into college, was not necessarily expected to put up even decent to crazy numbers just based off of his play style not matching with the college game, right? A player who normally needs others to create for him is not going to put up the best numbers in the college game. He's not a self-creator at that level. What he needed was somebody else who could create for him and he could play next to as a true two guard. He had Isaiah Collier, but Isaiah Collier is not a true point guard.
Yeah.
So Bronny and Isaiah Collier are both sitting there as two guards looking at each other, waiting for somebody to help the other out. Isaiah Collier put up better numbers, which is why he went in the first round of the draft, and he was the number one ranked recruit coming into the class. But
Mm-hmm.
even him, you saw that he went 29th in the class based off mainly high school because his college season was not the best. Bronny James struggled. He didn't even start the first few games once he came back from his not heart injury. No, yes, heart injury. Um, but this is a five-star prospect with a high school reputation. Now, if you want to argue that he shouldn't have been a 5-star prospect, that's a
He
whole
shouldn't.
different. That's a whole
He
different
shouldn't.
argument.
He shouldn't have
That's
Shout
been.
a
out to
whole
Sierra
different
King,
argument.
man.
But based off the high school ranking, he's been 5-star on most platforms.
McDonald's All
This is not an
American.
unprecedented event. So I think people are up in arms about something that I don't know. We see these type of players declare all the time. Khalil Whitney left Kentucky before the season even ended. He didn't get drafted, but he got a contract with the Hornets. So these type of players leave college early for no reason a lot. And a lot of them end up still getting drafted based off their traits and their upside. So I think the Bronny James hate is simply just that. I think people are just hating on the whole he's LeBron's son, and it is. I don't think he would have got drafted if LeBron was in the league, but I do think he would have got a contract if he was 5-star prospect with the context. I don't think he would have left college also, but with the context, he would have still got a contract.
I don't
You
disagree
don't
with
do
that
two
point,
ways.
JB. I don't disagree with that point, JB, because
He wouldn't
again,
have
another.
signed with Rich Paul. He wouldn't have signed with Rich
Don't
Paul
do
if
two
he was.
ways. Not doing it. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was gonna say I agree with CT as well. Another person, obviously, Brandon Boston Jr. He got picked 51. Had I think the most guaranteed money by a second round pick. Back when he was.
Only reason he was on my list, only reason I didn't say him is because he cracked double digits, but the double digits was so bad. It was like double
Yeah.
digits on 30%. So it was like, is that really double digits?
Yeah. If we had Cade, I still argue that if we had Cade, the season would have been different. But that's a completely different argument. Yeah, him, and then of course Justin Edwards, who was also like top 3 ranked recruit, and he just got to deal with. I think he signed a 2-way with the Sixers, so that also furthers CT's point. So I think Bronny probably would have found a way to get a 2-way contract if it got to that point. Was Tiger Campbell at UCLA last year, or was he out of eligibility?
That's a great question.
Because if he was there, then I think to your point, Bronny would have been better at, like, say, a UCLA than he would have been at USC, because Tiger's more of a lead guard and a guy, and UCLA themselves, like, especially Mick Cronin, prides himself on defense, so that would have been like a great landing spot for Bronny. But I can understand why he went to USC and stuff like that. So, but that was just a thought I had.
Allow me to refute.
Go ahead. Let's talk about it.
Bronny James has. I've done the research. Bronny James has never averaged over 10 points a game. Never.
It's okay.
Not high school, not college, and it won't be an NBA.
So is your argument that he shouldn't have been a 5-star?
I think that's his argument.
Let's wait a second.
Because you're about to have an argument that I'm not going to argue against.
Let me finish my argument. Let me go ahead and complete it. Now, we talk about these other 5-star recruits you mentioned. Justin Edwards. Others. Brandon Boston. Others. Yes. Now, we can see eye tests. They got game. I think people are lying about Bronny's game. Like, he can, yes, he's athletic. He's very athletic for his size. He's 6'1", 42-inch vert. Cool. I've seen that before. That's nice. That's tough. Nice. Good mind for the game. I respect it. Many players like that. At Bowie, I've seen them, right? I don't think that's enough to, be a 5-star recruit. No, bro, no. 2, that's just nepotism. I get it. It's nepotism right there. He got the first, I'm trying to use the right word. It's going to sound crazy if I don't use the right word here. But that's his first chance of nepotism, I'll say. First opportunity, 5-star recruit, undeservedly so. Came to UCLA. Now USC. My fault. Doesn't really compare to, you mentioned Brandon Boston, to Kentucky, right? So you're at Kentucky, it's kind of better players you're playing with, I would assume, compared to USC, right? He's playing I also would think, a lower conference. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I would say yeah.
Slightly.
Because they're in the Pac-12?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Slightly lower conference. So compared to these players you're mentioning, one, he don't have the size of Chris Livingston. He's 6'1". He's 6'1". He's not quick. He's not. Nothing really stands out except his leaping ability, which is cool. And his IQ, I guess y'all saying he played the game the right way, but basically mean he can't score. In my thoughts. Well, so I just disagree because I can see he don't have no game. So I just don't think. I
Can
think it's different.
Can Chris Livingston score
Um, I think he scored enough. And
enough?
well, you know, I take it back. I take it back. I don't think he scores to the level of other players we're compared to, but I think he's 6'9" and athletic, and that
Chris
makes him more
Livingston is
valuable.
6'6".
Oh, my fault. 6'6". My apologies. Continue.
But he plays like a
Chris
small
Liv-
ball four.
he plays like a small ball forward and is 6'6", can't shoot, but got drafted because of traits and upside, right? So Bronny is let's
His
just
traits weren't
imagine.
that good though.
No, I'm
But
not. No, I'm just. Let's just imagine that his name is Bronny
wow.
Ramon Brown. Yeah, Bronny Ramon Brown. Let's
That's
go
like
with that.
okay.
The thing that Bronny shows you is, and this is gonna sound very corny and very cliche, is feel for the game. He showed you that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but JB, but
We can feel the game.
in a
You and I
world
can
where
feel the game, Christian.
we're seeing role players and connectors change series one game at a time,
Yes.
the players like Chris Livingston, Scotty Lewis, don't have that type of game. Bronny actually has the potential to show that he could be a 3-and-D guard at the NBA level. He's shown that.
Well, as a
He has
shooter,
shown that. He the one thing about Bronny is he's very self-aware. He doesn't come into the league and compare himself to I could be better than Steph Curry, John Morant. He says he wants to be Davion Mitchell. That's a backup point guard.
Ooh,
Backup. That's a third string point guard. Bronny is very
or
self-aware of who he is as a basketball player. He can strive to be Drew Holiday all he wants, but he knows that realistically, if he's gonna stick in the league, he has to be Davion Mitchell.
with a better shot.
No, he just has to be Davion Mitchell. Because the last name is James. But
he about to get out of the league.
Good
He
point.
just
Good
got
point.
traded.
Good point.
Davion got
Davion
traded.
Mitchell.
But hey,
But
he's
listen,
stuck in the league, and he'll see through his first contract.
now I see. You know, I'm going to agree with that because I was going to say there aren't many guards who are game changing, as you mentioned, at 6'1" in the league we're in today.
You
How many
said game
6'1"?
changing?
You said game changer, right? Role
I
players, game
said they
changer.
could change a game by
Yeah.
being a role player. Yes,
That's what I mean.
role playing game changer. Sure.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about full game changing like Steph Curry. I'm talking about
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
mentioned from game to game. Um, there aren't many 6'1" players that are doing that in today's game.
How tall is Drew?
Drew is 6'4".
Okay.
Yes, Ronnie's 6'1". Drew is hounding him. He's not. No, Ronnie's shot not quick enough. He's not getting it off like that. I watched the tape. He don't got
That's
it.
the
But
that's the point though. He's not. You keep talking about his shot. He's not a self creator. He's never been a self creator.
I'm talking about even off the catch.
But can't that be worked
Shot
on?
off. He can get a shot off the catch. Come on now.
It's too slow. It's too slow.
But can't they
It's
work on
not.
that? Can't he, don't they
Yeah.
have? Don't you think they have the people in the Lakers facility to at least get a shot together?
Now, I will agree with that, Brian. I feel like it's good for him to go
We
to the
don't know the
league now.
coaching staff.
No, I'm not talking about the Lakers.
Oh,
in
my
general.
fault. My
I was gonna
fault.
say,
I forgot we got a different.
No,
coaching
he was
staff, my
talking about the
fault.
Lakers.
oh, okay. I don't know about the Lakers, no. But being in the league, you'll have more access to improving his game faster than in college. So I agree with that. So it
I'm
can get
assuming
better.
they'll bring Phil
Nah,
Handy back though,
that's what the opportunity
unless
is
he
all
went
about.
somewhere.
But if we look at Davion Mitchell, who was the number 9 overall pick in the draft,
Why was he number 9? Let's paint the
they,
Davion Mitchell.
because
Let's
he
paint the
played better than
Davion
Bron.
Mitchell picture. Let's do this.
March
How many
Madness,
years was
man.
Davion Mitchell in college?
2?
It's either 2 or 3. I can't remember.
2 or 3, right?
Yes. Same
Is it
conference.
crazy, Brian? Brian, this question is for you.
Okay.
Is it crazy to think, based off Davion Mitchell's first year in college, and then he goes into a second, or if he did 3 years, second or third year,
Mm-hmm.
the product that he was by the end of his time in college, is there a chance that Bronny could have been a very similar product by the end of his 2 or 3 years in college if he would have stayed? Is there a chance?
I think so, especially given his athleticism. I think so.
More athletic than Davion. He's probably not the instinctual defender that Davion is, but his athleticism could make up for it.
Kind of strong.
And neither are
Yeah.
good creators.
That can be improved on.
Davion went 9. I don't think Bronny going 55 is that crazy. If you get, I said Bronny should have gone back to college for a year, but you don't know if
I agree.
LeBron's playing another year. I think Bronny should have. go on to college another year, develop even more, potentially hone your role at a different school, right? But
I feel
the
like that's
opportunity
another
is there.
conversation in itself about like going back to
It
school for another
is.
year.
It's a whole different conversation. And the opportunity to play with your dad was there. This is a rare situation. LeBron is going on 40. You don't know if he's playing another year. He can say that LeBron says every year that he doesn't know if he's going to come back. We don't know. We don't think that's the truth or not. I think he has at least 2 more years. But
Yeah.
Bronny and LeBron, they don't know. This is the opportunity to strike. You know LeBron's in his ear. I don't think Bronny going to 55 this year and going 36 next year is crazy. I think he would have been in the 30s or 40s next year if he came out as a legit prospect. He could have been even better. And if he stays for a third, he could be one of them upper class players who put up 14 a game who go first round just based off the traits and knowing how to play as a player.
I mean, Hawkes.
Mm. It's very interesting you say that, Christian,
Yeah.
because Davion Mitchell in his third year, after third year before going to the league, he averaged 14 points on the dot.
At Baylor,
His first, yep, his first year at Auburn, he averaged 3.7. So I think what you're saying is fair. I think if Bronny stayed in school longer and showed us his game, improved his game, I would have nothing to say.
I think my
Just like
whole point is
If Davion Mitchell was drafted off what he did at Auburn his first year of 3 points and 2 assists, people looking like, why the fuck did they draft him?
but I think it's different because Davion wouldn't have been a 5-star recruit coming into Auburn. Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the five-star
I don't
pedigree
think he was
really
a
holds
five
a lot of
star.
weight. So if
Yes.
Davion was 5-star, went to Auburn, and then put up 3 points a game, and he was drafted 55, some people probably would have been confused about it, but I don't think it would have been a surprise at the time. If he was
So
a
I
So if you
sorry,
attach
go
5-star, hypothetical 5-star to those stats at
ahead.
Auburn, and he goes
Mhm.
55, I don't think we would have been surprised.
I
Honestly,
agree.
because a lot of these prospects are made before they even get to the league. And the only thing that college does is drop your stock, right? You'll still be on the draft board. But if you play bad in college, it'll just drop your stock, right? So if
Yeah.
Davion puts up those numbers, I could see him still being drafted based off that hypothetical 5-star potential.
It
And
would probably
like you say, Bronny probably shouldn't have been a 5-star. I think Bronny probably should have been a 4-star, whatever, 5-star, 4-star. McDonald's All American is what he was, right? Um, and so based off of that ranking plus his stats, we see that the trajectory is there. Davion put up 3, Bronny put up 4. I think if Bronny got in the right situation in his second year in college, he could have put up 8 to 10. And then if he stayed for a third year, he could have put up 14. Because I don't him being in his correct role could have been a whole different freshman season. But at USC, they had him creating a lot of his own shots, had him playing next to a point guard who wasn't a point guard yet. So it's just a lot of bad stuff for both of them, Bronny and Collier.
Yeah.
And then they weren't well coached. I think the coach left, and they have a new coach there now. So a lot of their players who were there left. So it
Yeah, he's
wasn't the
at
best situation
SMU
for him
now, if I'm
anyway.
not mistaken.
Say it again.
So
I think he's at SMU if I'm not mistaken. Also,
Yeah, the USC coach is at SMU. Come
yeah.
on now.
Also, Davion was a 4-star, but he was like number 75 nationally. So even if Bronny was a 4-star, I think Bronny probably would have been like top 30, like 30 35. So just the little nugget there.
I guess to wrap it up and move on to the next thing, I feel like you can look at Davion Mitchell for the next year and see Brian's trajectory and see what it looks like. I think that's fair for a comp.
I think we're all in agreement on a couple things. We're all in agreement. Bronny should have gone back to college.
Yes.
I think we all agree that he would have gone back if LeBron was not in the league.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I say
I
yes. I
think he
say
would have.
yes because there would be no incentive for him to go right now if he knows he's going.
Is
Only
Bron?
reason I say he would have is because he initially entered the transfer portal
Yeah,
while also simultaneously putting his name in the draft just to see what scouts were saying. I think if he would have done that same process and scouts would have said, "Hey, bro, you're not getting drafted yet.
he would have came back to
Go back
school.
for another year," he would have gone back. But that's just that.
Is Bron still his dad, but Bron not in the league?
That's what he's saying. And Braun's not in the league, but
Yeah,
Braun is still his dad.
Bron's
He's still his
retired.
dad.
I think
Okay.
Bron being
I
in
think
the
he's still
league, I think him being in the league is the incentive for him going this early because he could have still done the same thing the second year. He doesn't need
But
the
you just
money.
don't know. But obviously, you don't know what happens with Braun next year. So
I think with Bron, one who didn't go to college, I think telling Bronny, go get your bread now. And given the heart condition he had, you just go accomplish your dream while you can. That's what I'm
You can
thinking.
say
So
go get
that
your bread now, but he's making more in college than he was on his first contract
I agree. Like if it,
as
so
a
I would,
as a 55th overall pick.
so I
Just
do get what
for
JB saying.
basketball.
I do get what JB saying because I mean, Braun did have a teammate in DeJuan Wagner who like had a something. I forgot
Yeah,
what the condition was, but it was something with his colon,
yeah.
and
It was,
like
oh, oh,
and it happened while he was in. It happened. Well, it happened once he was in Cleveland. But like the biggest thing
mhm.
was always like, what if he had went back to school instead of Cal telling him no, go to the draft? So like, but if we were talking about DeJuan, he was like what pick 6. So like, it's a little
Yeah.
more incentive there than like if DeJuan was pick 55, he's probably coming back to school. So I can see what you're saying, JB, because like he's kind of had firsthand experience with that, but well, not firsthand experience, but he's experienced it. But I think unless they, yeah, well, yeah, but I just I don't think like CT said, I don't think the incentive is there for you to leave and potentially go undrafted if Braun's not in the league. Because if Braun's not in the league, what's the incentive for somebody to draft him?
To be an NBA player, knowing that's your dream.
No, I'm saying
That's
what's
what
the
I'm
incentive
thinking.
for a team to draft him if Braun's
Oh,
not in the league?
oh, oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Well,
Well,
the
he was
incentive
good,
for
like
the
I
team,
say, he is.
marketing.
He got
The
traced,
team,
right? Drafted.
the team has the marketing aspect of it that they would think about, but I don't think they would waste their. I don't want to say waste. Spend a draft pick on that. They might prioritize him as an undrafted free agent.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
we
They
can move
probably be
on
more
from the
likely
Bronny
to try to
talk.
do a 2-way.
I think this is a healthy Bronny talk instead of all the other stuff I see on TV. A lot of people are just very angry um, at the whole situation. I don't think there's anything to be angry about. We're seeing a black man propel his black children to standards that they may not have been able to get to themselves. So, good job, LeBron. Shout out to you. So we can move on.
Great father,
Brian
great
is the
husband.
next topic. Oh wait, we want to do. We didn't really talk about the trades in the last episode. Did we? The Mikal Bridges trade.
We talked. Well, we didn't like expand on it, but we just brought it up because it was breaking news. So we can talk
And then
about
the
it.
OG Anunoby extension also occurred. Was there anything you guys wanted to mention on the, I want to say pre-draft trades and then like pre-free agency extensions? Anything you guys want to mention on that,
Um,
on in that regard?
as a Celtics fan, I'm a little nervous. You know what I'm saying? Because now,
Hmm.
because I mean, you have OG and you're able to get OG, and you have Mikal Bridges, so you have more guys that you more bodies to throw at Tatum and Brown, kind of like how they were talking about how we had bodies to throw at Luka and Kyrie in the finals. I'm not like completely worried because I'm sure I would like to think that Joe would try to like diversify his attack a little bit so we don't get as stagnant. Especially like if Jason and Jalen are off. I know that's a little optimistic, but I'd like to think that. But I think those moves definitely make, at least for now, until we see what Paul George does, makes the Knicks the second best team in the Eastern Conference going forward.
Okay, okay. I like you signed the OG. I think now the question is, um, what we do with Julius Randle? Do we keep Julius Randle? If that means we lose Hartenstein, which one are we picking? Hartenstein, pick Randle. That's what I think right now. In terms of just having the money for both. I think he still fits in the team, but it can be quite. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's different with our depth on our team, being the Celtics, of course.
Yeah,
Um, to where we don't have as many redundant role players. I feel like the Knicks got a lot of 3 and D players, which is not a bad thing because they're trying to match up with us. But it's kind of it makes George Randall value kind of interesting
yeah,
because he can be some of a black hole, but you need another scorer to relieve the pressure of Jalen Brunson. And Mikal has not proven to do that on a regular basis. He did that little 27 point per game spurt towards the end of the first season of the Nets. But yeah, I like the deal. I love the power of friendship. So we'll see how it goes.
yeah. I was gonna say I like your take on that, but I think B-Ball Breakdown had a little bit on that as well. Because it's like
Mm.
Jalen Brunson has shown us that he can be the guy that can be that ISO scorer, obviously that number one guy. So Julius does feel a little redundant as a lefty guy that also isos a lot. Um, Whereas if you where you bring in Mikal, you can have more of a free flowing offense. OG kind of fits into that as well. So you kind of have more of a movement, passing, cutting type offense. You have guys who have played together before, so they kind of know each other's tells and things of that nature. Kind of like when we play together. Um, yeah, so and you also got a guy like Hartenstein who's a pretty good passer. So I would think that they would probably be more. I think you would probably try to lean more to getting, to like keeping Hartenstein and seeing what you can get for Julius Randle. Because especially if you're able to move Randle, probably makes it a little easier to bring Hartenstein back, even though you're probably getting right at that second apron, if not going over it. But obviously, that's a decision for New York to make.
When you think about the Knicks packaging something, I can't think off the top of my head, but
They
getting
got
Paul
picks.
George to, huh?
I was saying they got picks, so they got stuff to package.
Oh, picks, yeah, picks for sure. But Julius Randle and something, maybe some picks involved to get Paul George. What y'all think about that?
I don't see where the Clippers go for that. I see
I
what you're
don't think the
saying,
Clippers do
but I don't know how
business.
the Clippers go for that.
Mm.
The Clippers got to do business to get a trade done. Since it's past the little opt in, since PG didn't opt in anywhere PG wants to go that doesn't have cap space, Clippers got to do business. I don't
Yeah.
see the Clippers doing much business. But I like your point about the Hartenstein and Randall thing, because I think that may be something that they're contemplating currently. Because reports were saying that Hartenstein has been in a meeting with OKC for most of the day.
Hmm.
I think
Mm.
people were waiting on him to sign with OKC, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm wondering if he's like giving the Knicks an opportunity to match, or if there's just more offers that are being made. But I do think the Knicks have an interesting decision to make in that regard. Because me personally, I don't love the Julius Randle fit with this team, but the more I think about it, I don't know if I love the Julius Randle fit anywhere. Just based off his play style, leading to NBA champion level basketball. I don't see it working most places, but I do think that if the Knicks want to be a serious contending team, they need like that second guy who can go get their own bucket. And I'm sure McHale in stretches can do that, but we saw in Brooklyn sometimes it would get nasty. Other than the first year, with the first 40 games he was there, I think it caught teams by surprise. But last year, him creating his own shot did not look the best most times, and I'm sure it might look even worse in a playoff setting. I think if McHale is trenched in as that third option, that guy who can just sit in the corner and wait and just play off of somebody else, I think that works for him. But I think the Knicks do need that second guy who can go get their own bucket. I mean, Jalen Brunson showed that he can carry the load, but I do think to get over the hump, to get over those Celtics, to get over those teams in the Western Conference who they would have to play in the finals,
Mm-hmm.
they need that second guy. We saw it with the Celtics this year. In the finals, you needed somebody else who could create their own shot because the Mavericks focused intently on Jason Tatum, focused on him making sure that he was not getting to that little sidestep shot the way he wanted to. Anytime he drove, he saw multiple people in his face. And so the Celtics needed Jalen Brown to take that step up. And in most of the games, the first three, 2.5-ish games, he did. Right? That's what led to him winning finals MVP because he was the better player when the Celtics were up 3-0. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Knicks do need that player who can ease it off of Brunson sometimes. That's not necessarily saying that it has to be a Julius Randle. But if you do move Randle and want to keep Hartenstein, I think you need to go get somebody who can be a bucket getter as well. So I do like the Paul George idea. I just don't think it'll happen. Whether they do choose to keep Randle, I think that gives them a ceiling high enough if you get a good Julius Randle season. You get one every other year though. I think this year that it just happened was again we were getting a pretty good one. So I don't know. And coming off injury, you never know.
I'm
But I
not.
think the ceiling is there. If you get a good Julius Randle season, they could make some noise in the Eastern Conference.
I'm
What's the
not even sure
ceiling?
what wings you can find though, because like we've heard like Kevin Durant and the Rockets, but like I don't think the Suns are taking Julius Randle back. Like I feel like if you're moving Julius Randle for any impactful second score, so to speak, I feel like it would have to be a three-team trade because somebody you'd have to find somebody that's willing to take Julius Randle. Because I don't think the Suns are doing
Uh,
it. Don't think the Clippers are doing it. Um, Timberwolves, if you want to throw Cat in there, but like I don't think they're doing that. So like I don't see a place where like he's just able to. We're just offloading him unless it's like to a real bad team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
JB, you were
yeah,
saying what's the ceiling?
Maybe Utah, but even then, like that's I don't know about that one
Look,
either.
Utah shouldn't do that. But you were saying what's the ceiling for who? The Knicks?
yeah. You said if Randall plays well, if he has another All NBA third team season,
I think if they get a good Julius Randle season, I don't see why they can't give the Celtics serious bump.
Hmm.
I don't see
conference
why
final.
not. I think if you get to the conference finals, I think it'll be a series. So I think they could get to the finals. And if they beat the Celtics, I think they could win the finals.
I think that makes
Okay.
sense. I feel like the problem would be not how well is he playing, but how much has he evolved? Because I think the Celtics would try to play the mind games and try to make Julius that black hole, and like try to take away all that movement that we were talking about and things of that nature that makes him hard to guard at points.
Hey, that's why I said good. If he plays bad, they suck. Well, not they don't suck, but they don't beat the
Yeah,
Celtics. Like if I'm saying not even All NBA just in the regular season, but he has to continue that level of play in the playoffs, and that's what we haven't seen from him yet,
yeah,
right? Like we've seen him have that success during the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's a different ball game. He shoots 35% from the field, and he still gets his points, but it's not efficient and doesn't lead to winning basketball, right? So if he's able to carry over successful regular season to the playoffs, that's where I'm saying they could be dangerous.
got you.
But he can have the great regular season only once. But once the playoffs come around, I'm a playoffs type of guy. If you're not performing in the playoffs, what are you doing for me? And then you're holding your team back. And that's when you might have moved on too late. Because if the rest of the league sees Julius Randle not have success next year, the
Mm,
value that you could have got this year is not even going to be there next year. And you probably aren't getting that much value this year because they saw you make the semifinals without him. Not this.
Right.
Is it the semi? Yeah, the Eastern
Yeah,
semifinals without him.
I got
yeah,
one more team, JB, just because you say they do stupid stuff.
yeah. I've been thinking, but go ahead.
Chicago.
Nah, they committed.
That's
They committed to the rebuild, man.
I
that's
feel
a
like if
good
you
one, Brian.
I feel like if you add a couple of picks, they might mess around and do it, just because that would be something that Chicago would do.
See, the thing I was thinking about when trying to find teams, you gotta find a team that can easily trick themselves into thinking that they can make noise in the playoffs by
Mm.
getting Julius Randle. And the Bulls are one, the Hornets are one.
Yeah, I can see
If the
Charlotte. I
Pacers
can see
didn't do
Charlotte.
it, they did. I think the Pacers proved it against Siakam. I don't know what they think what the ceiling gonna be with Siakam. Apparently, Eastern Conference Finals. I'll take that back. Um, I think Kings might be one.
They already got some bonus though, so that's what's gonna hurt that. I was thinking Kings
What
too,
they
but I'm
don't
like
have
they got some bonus, and it's a
another
bonus is
left-handed power forward.
basically like what CT said about Randall, but on steroids.
Going left only.
No, not that. Just how are you gonna play in the
Oh,
playoffs?
oh, oh! I thought Spurs played well in the playoffs. I think
He
he played too bad.
does, but the Kings lost in the. Sabonis played well, but they also lost because of Sabonis. Because
I,
in key moments, he couldn't hit a shot, and teams would
yeah,
just look at
it was
him
bad.
because he didn't shoot a jump shot. So stuff like that. I think Sabonis is better than Randall. So
Yeah,
you
that's
can
what I'm saying. It's on
if you can do that
steroids.
if you can do that swap, I don't think the Kings would do that though. Just
Yeah, they
because
wouldn't do that.
Oh
Sabonis gives
no,
you that ability to play the 5 and the 4, stuff like that. Julius Randle, we were talking about one position players. Julius Randle might be one of those one
He's a
position
he
four.
players.
is.
He is
He
absolutely a
is. He
four.
But
can only
look,
whoop his.
at the same time, he can play small ball 5 in some lineups.
Oh no, no, he can't. No, he
He
can't. He
can.
can't.
If the other team is running small
Oh
ball,
my
if the Celtics are running out Al Horford at 5, he can play 5 against Al Horford,
Yeah,
whether we like it or not. But naturally, he's a true 4. You're not starting him at the 5.
he's an absolute four.
God. I feel like putting somebody in a position don't mean that they like. Come on, man. I don't.
Oh, I just threw you a bone. I said he's a one position player who can
Let me
play.
keep. You threw me the bone, like took it back a little bit. Just let me hold the
No,
bone.
no, no. I mean, I threw it 75 yards. I had to bring it back to the 50. It was too far.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, no, touchdown. I thought it was a good
Nah,
touchdown.
I wouldn't have touched
I got him.
it. Well,
Wait a minute.
I
Let's use some
gave
clock.
you. You think I fumbled and gave you the touchdown?
Your
No.
friends to touchdown get back like
No,
Madden.
I tackled you at the 50.
Oh, God, the 50.
New game.
I was closer than that.
But
Halftime.
that's a lot of Knicks talk. The Knicks, good deals overall. Bringing in OG, it was a lot of money. That's a lot of money for OG, in my opinion. But that's the going rate for connectors these days. So it's not
Stay
really
on the.
surprising.
Stay tuned for our
I
top
feel
30
like
connectors
But
episode.
but
We will
getting
have that at
Mikal,
some
like
point.
JB said, the power of friendship, like Brian said, it's like watching what's the play on the court, man. When you know what each other are doing, it just looks different. So the Knicks probably striking a little fear into the Eastern Conference. We can move on to the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
Me, JB, and Nate were hooping Friday, and Nate is everybody should know is the Brandon Ingram fan of the podcast. And so we got news that Dejounte Murray traded to the Pelicans. Nate was like,
see ya.
"Is it for Ingram? Ingram? They traded Ingram." And then he found out it wasn't for Ingram because I guess he didn't want Ingram to go to the Hawks with Trae Young, something like that. But I do think he wants Ingram off the Pelicans, so don't really know where he wants him to go. I think it was some reports with the Kings earlier. But the Pelicans were able to get DeJounte Murray for Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, and what else?
I think it was a pick 2027 pick, and I think the Lakers pick. I think that was the deal.
Yeah, the value was a bit low for DeJounte. I mean, can't really say I'm surprised considering that I heard that Trae Young's value wasn't that high. So it was like if Trae Young's value wasn't high, then DeJounte's can't be that high either. But I feel like if this went to a bidding war, I feel like a couple teams may have driven up the price a little bit, but maybe this was the price that it was driven up to. But if Larry Nance and Dyson Daniels are the best players you're getting in return, something went wrong.
Especially when
Um,
apparently they were asking for like 2 first rounders and a starter. I think around the
yeah, and I don't
deadline.
think they got a starter. I mean, Larry Nance or Dyson Daniels could give you spot starts, but on a competent team, I don't think those are your starters. I think those are very good bench pieces for you down the
Probably in your
line.
top
But
eight, but
spot starters, I don't know. I feel like the Pelicans got away with one here. And we were talking on Friday when the deal happened. It's like the Pelicans have a lot of players who can start. I think that's the difference between them and the Hawks. Pelicans have a lot of players. We were just thinking about who goes to the bench. We was talking about it, and JB forgot about Zion. Like we we was talking about for a minute. He was like, "No, they can't put Trey Murphy on the bench." And I was like, "What about Zion?" He was like, "Oh." Because we was thinking, even if they trade Brandon Ingram, you trade Brandon Ingram, you're likely going to get at least one starter back. So it's like, who plays where? You still don't know who their five is going to be.
that's the big question.
And it's definitely not going to be Zion because he's 6'6". That might be another one position player. I don't know. I don't know.
No, no. That's a real small ball five. That's a real small ball five.
In a,
Oh,
Everything
yeah,
okay,
Julius
okay.
said,
All right. Thank you. I win that one. Set him up perfectly, Brian.
no,
But,
no. Everything Julius Randle is, Zion is better.
you missed off the Pelicans roster. DeJounte, CJ McCollum are your guards. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Brandon Ingram currently. Those are five players already.
mm-hmm.
Then you have Zion. And then hypothetical center, right? So those are seven players, so you have to figure out who's starting, who's not. And if I'm the Pelicans, I want Herb Jones and Trey Murphy starting
Absolutely,
just because of their ability to defend and shoot the ball. Herb Jones shot that ball really well last year.
man.
And I think that's a development that you can't simply just throw on the bench. I
I'm gonna
think
say it would have to be
Brandon,
CJ, but the question is with Brandon, what are you getting back? Because as we already said, there and as we know, they're five from last year isn't coming back because Jonas Valanciunas has intends to sign with Washington. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, what are you exactly getting for Brandon Ingram? Because I know Nate when we were talking. I know there's discussions with the Kings. That's as you said. That's what's been reported. But I know like during the playoffs, Nate was talking about like Brandon Ingram for Cat or something like that. I think that's what
I
he
don't
said.
think
I
his
can't
value is
remember.
that high.
Mm,
I don't think Brandon Ingram's value is that high.
not by himself, but if you package, I like it.
I don't
I
think
like that.
Minnesota does that though.
Really, after watching Cat,
Have you seen Brandon Ingram lately?
it's nasty as
This
well.
last year,
We
Brandon Ingram is really bad basketball.
well,
Nate
that was
will Nate
also
will
Brandon
argue that
Ingram
he was coming off an injury, but
before. I feel like if you get Ant as a primary scorer and Ingram as a secondary scorer, it looks a little bit different.
I mean, I could see that, but I still don't think. I think Cat's value is, I don't want to say way, but much higher than Brandon Ingram. Like, like even if you throw in somebody else or something else, I don't think Minnesota does it because I think they're substantially worse.
I
I
agree
don't know
there.
about
I
substantially
think you
worse.
think about the season Cat just gave them. Not he played decent in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he gave them a very good regular season, playing defense, shooting the ball well,
That's the biggest thing
made the All Star
defensively.
in the stacked Western Conference. This was a top
Hold
12
on.
player in the West based off last season.
I gotta ask. If you tell me I'm the Timberwolves, you can give me Brandon Ingram, either Herb or Murphy, and the pick, whatever.
You're
You're
not
not
getting
getting
Herb or
Herb
Murphy.
Murphy. But
Your
Okay,
if
best.
I'm the
if
Timberwolves, and that's what they give me, I would consider it.
okay, that's
But
all I
I
need to
think that
hear.
also puts you in a situation where you're the only reason Timberwolves trade Cat right now is because of they don't want to pay everybody. Because
You
Jaden
already got
McDaniels is
Nas
up for a
and
contract.
yeah.
Conley's money is still getting paid, but he'll be gone in a few years. And then Cat is gonna get an extension soon. And then Ant is money is about to be on the books as well. So the only reason they would move that player currently is because they don't want to pay that money down the line because of the cheap owners. So if you're making that deal, you're putting yourself in an even worse situation because you have to pay Bi and then you have to pay either Herb or Trey Murphy. That's
Let
more
me take
money.
that back. I don't think that's the only reason why. I think that as we all saw, the Timberwolves created a roster to beat Denver, which they did, great,
Yeah.
but they not able to really compete schematically with the majority of the league having those two bigs in their playoffs. I want to clarify that in the playoffs, they did well during regular season. So I think that's another reason to think about. Okay, we probably have to move one of these players, and Cat probably has the most value between him and Rudy,
Yeah.
and on our team between the two has the least value between the two.
You don't think that they could give it a 1 year go while bringing in better bench pieces so you have a more viable lineup with one of them off the court? Because I think that was their main issue. When they took
They
one
just
of them
have
off
any
the court, they were
spacing.
bringing in Naz Reid, who isn't a plus defender either. And unless you're moving Jaden McDaniels up to the four, and then you can bring in some random free agent wing who plays the position well. That makes your lineup without one of the bigs in much better. I think that was the main issue. Of course, the defensive lineup didn't look great with just Cat on the court as the five, or if Rudy was getting exposed at the five. But I think if you're able to alternate them, and this is what we said from when they were traded initially, when they traded for Gobert initially, if you're able to flip their minutes back and forth instead of having them on the court together and then Gobert on the court by himself with no true defense around him. I think you're able to bring in a free agent wing somehow. I don't know how the money works. I think they have at least a mid-level exception this year. Depends on if the cheap owner wants to pay it though. But you have a mid-level exception to bring in somebody who could play next to the Jaden McDaniels at the four. Um, that way, the defensive lineup looks better because you don't have that perimeter player getting blown past as much. Because who they have coming off the bench this year on the perimeter, other than
They
Kyle Anderson,
well, they had
Nikhil
the kid.
Alexander Walker, and
They
Kyle
had Kyle
Anderson? Come
Anderson,
on,
but they didn't. No. Kyle Anderson played very well, but they just didn't play him because they wanted to play their bigs. That's
Kyle.
exactly
but
what
he
No,
happened.
also
Kyle
wasn't
Anderson
shoot.
had
He also
games where
wasn't
he did
shooting
play
well.
well, but as a point of attack defender, other than on Luca, because somehow he just is one of the best Luca defenders in the league. But other than against Luca, Kyle Anderson isn't the best point of attack defender in the league. I think Kyle Anderson is somebody who can stay on the team. Of course, I wouldn't unless he's somebody that you could move in a deal to get somebody else. Um, but other than Kyle
I,
Anderson, who else is the wing on that bench?
Nikhil Alexander Walker.
That's a guard defender to me. I don't think you're putting him
You said,
on many wings.
oh,
I
you
think
said point
that's
of attack
it.
defender.
Because
I thought you meant you
I
didn't say
said point of
attack
attack, my
wing.
fault. I was just thinking about somebody who you could put at the two or three that bumps Jaden McDaniels up to the four.
Oh, you're right. Then they gotta find somebody for
yeah, I'm
that.
about
I
to say
think it's
yeah.
about
Because
to.
You know who I would target if Atlanta's really blowing it up, I would see if
DeAndre,
there's a way to get DeAndre Hunter.
I agree.
Mm, okay, I
And
like
then
that.
you
I
might
like.
only be able to run that for a year because once you want to pay Jaden McDaniels, DeAndre Hunter money probably got to get off the books, so you might have to get rid of him. But if I think they probably give it one good year, and then that's when you might see the Cat trade. Because I don't think Cat's value goes down unless he plays awful. And he didn't play awful
Oh,
this past playoffs, and I don't think he'll do it again. I don't foresee him playing awful next playoffs.
is he playing better next year? You think? I don't think he played better than what he played this year.
Maybe not in
But
the
that's
regular season, but I think he played. I think that's the thing, though. You gotta. I think they're gonna run it back one more year, see what they do playoff wise. Because I think part of it is they probably see. I don't say they see Dallas as fluky, but I think it's a matchup thing where it was like, okay, we ran into a bad. I think they're more so we ran into a bad matchup, and we can make improvements and make small incremental things, which I think is why they got a guy like a Terrence Shannon Jr. who is kind of a wing, but like more so on the guard aspect of it, kind of like that. I think that's what they're thinking about doing, and maybe I don't know if he's still on the team, but a guy like Wendell Moore, like maybe they think that he's developed a little bit more, so maybe you try to use him as well. But I think it's just a thing where you bring it back another year, you see how you look, and then from there maybe, I mean. Now, maybe the next year we're sitting here looking at it like, okay, maybe you should have moved Cat because you had more value last year. Kind of like we said about Julius Randle to bring that full circle. But yeah, I think it's a risk you got to take, something you got to see for a year because they were, as we said, they were great in the regular season. But I think the biggest thing was they just ran into a team that they weren't schematically built to play against, for lack of a better term.
I think if I'm Minnesota, what I ask myself is how many teams in the West are definitively better than we were this past year, and how many do we see being better than us this next year? And I don't think the number is higher than 2.
Yeah.
And even then, if you see Denver as better, they're losing KCP. Even if you see Denver as better, like you said, Minnesota has been built to beat Denver. They've done it. So I don't think they're just going into the season doubting that they can do it again. I also think that they look at Dallas and say, if we get a better series from baby Michael Jordan, maybe we play better. Maybe we give him 6 or 7 games.
Because he definitely
Ant
came to
didn't
play
play
in
his
that
best
game
series
4.
either.
I don't know, guys. I feel like looking at the playoffs, yes, they did well. But one thing that really stood out was having another creator outside of Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
And I think, even as you mentioned, finding that guard, that wing, or I don't know what term you want to use for it, but that player that can play the 2-3 off the bench who can defend, you have that with either Trey Murphy or Herb Jones, and you get that second creator with Brandon Ingram. I feel like that'd be perfect for what they were missing.
But the thing
But-
is,
And
I
then
don't
you don't
think
really
New
have to
Orleans is giving up Herb or Trey.
Yeah. I don't think the Brandon Ingram and something else is going to be Herbert Trey. I feel like the Brandon Ingram and something else would have been Brandon Ingram and Dyson Daniels. But
Yeah,
Dyson
Dyson,
Daniels is
Jordan
nice.
Hawkins, somebody like that probably.
Najee, no. Najee doesn't move the needle for me if I'm Minnesota. If I'm Minnesota, I'm accepting the deal instantly if it's Herb or Trey. But I don't think New Orleans is dumb enough to offer that.
I think they are, especially after getting Dejounte. I think they say we can go all in with this core.
I don't think so.
Well, who's there? So
Being
are you saying that like CJ's starting at the 2 at that point? If you think they're making that trade, or like what's the?
Yeah, Dejounte, CJ, Trey or Herb, Zion, and Cat. I think that's a confident starting 5.
It's competent,
What's
but I
the
don't know
depth?
if you think they're. Yeah, what is the depth?
You
got
lose
Najee.
Trey. You lose Trey or Herb. What's the rest of the depth?
You got Jordan Hawkins. You still got Jose Alvarado, Najee Marshall. I can't see the rest of the roster in my mind right now. So I know they traded EJ Liddell too.
I'm about to say you just
but,
lost
you
Liddell
got
and
Fresh-
Nance, so you have like no backup bigs. So that's a lot of
they still got-
reliance on Zion and Cat.
I mean, they could just sign somebody, but they still got Willie. They got Willie still.
Let me see.
Who? Willie
I'm
Green
assuming
is the
saying
coach.
Cauley Stein.
No,
You talking about the coach, Willie Green?
No, Hernan Gomez.
Oh, Hernan Gomez. I'm smoking.
I don't know if you got him or not, but like I said, you just fill that out.
According to
That's not a problem.
Wikipedia, he's in the
They got
Euro
something
League.
there. He were out of the deal. I'm only doing a 2-for-1, so they still either way they got to fill out their depth.
It's an interesting thought.
Sure, but Minnesota doesn't do that.
You're talking about hypotheticals. I
I mean,
think
not
this is
Minnesota.
definitely
New Orleans doesn't do that.
Okay. Would they do the same thing with Paul George though? How about that?
Would who do the same thing for Paul George?
The same deal I mentioned. Either Brandon Ingram and a piece. I don't know what you can pick the piece. Paul George and a piece. I mean, Brandon Ingram and a piece for Paul George. But the Pelicans do that to consolidate their starters because they have so many.
That's an interesting thought. Because I think that might actually be something the Clippers are willing to do.
I think so too. Especially with Herb or Trey.
I don't think the
But I don't think
Pelicans.
I
I
don't think you're
still don't
getting
think the
Herbert
Pelicans
Trey.
do that.
So who are they? They gotta let you.
You're
Let me ask you, Brian.
they're
I'm
adding like
telling
a
you,
bench
I don't
piece.
think.
I don't think they're adding one of their two guys that basically would be untouchable at this point. Because just like Mikal Bridges with the Nets, like there's not a lot of two-way wings in the league that can do what they do.
And they
So
have two of them.
It is though. The Knicks got
No,
four.
no. You can say it is a lot of two-way wings, but to the level of the Herb Jones and Trey Murphys,
exactly.
it's not.
Next part, I have a list of them. Okay, go ahead.
Next pod, you'll have a list. Do you have
I have a
anybody at the
list.
top of mind who you think would be on the list?
OTL. Right there. Now I might get crazy. I might say some wild stuff. I ain't gonna say it yet.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna put it
Jaden
together.
McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels. I'll keep going. I can't think right now, but
Why'd
I
you
have
put
someone
up
next time.
4?
I guess he's about to
My
name
fault.
somebody else.
Oh,
Three.
I thought he said Jalen McDaniels as well. I was about to have to end that one. No, yeah, okay, just making sure. We can move on though.
Okay.
Yeah.
We want to talk about the day one free agency stuff.
Yeah.
Hasn't been much. Hasn't
Let's
been
talk
much.
about.
It's been a. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just thought about Klay Thompson, but you continue.
Oh, Najee Marshall is a free agent, and he just signed with the Mavericks.
Well,
Hey, that's good for
That's
nice
them.
a
person.
good pickup.
That is a great
Good pickup
pickup.
for them. I like that.
Mason Plumlee just signed with the Phoenix Suns,
Good.
and
Interesting.
those are the most recent updates that occurred while we were potting.
That's good. I like it.
Is he their
Oh
starting
yeah.
center
Probably.
over
Mm,
not starting? No, he's not gonna start over Nurkic.
Oh yeah,
He
Nurkic
might
is
he
there.
might
they
give
He's
got
Nurkic
broken.
some bump. He might give Nurkic some bump though, because Nurkic be don't be moving the
yeah.
needle sometimes.
It's an interesting. That's an interesting pickup for Phoenix for sure.
I can see Nurkic going to the bench.
Mm,
I see it. I don't think it's out of the question.
it's not out of the
What were you gonna
question, but I
say?
feel like we got to see a few games first.
Yeah, I agree. He would start the season starting, but I can
Yeah.
see it mid-season he'll probably go on the bench at some point. I can see that happening. Um, but yeah, day one, we've heard a lot of Paul George talk. We heard a lot of Klay Thompson talk. Saw James Harden got signed. Um, Russell Westbrook re-signed with the Clippers as well. There were talks
Apparently,
of
they're
him
looking to
going
move him
to.
though.
There were talks of him going to the Nuggets. We saw KCP go to the Orlando. It's a lot that's happening. What do you guys think about so far? Any of those that I mentioned?
Well, I can say my favorite one is the Najee Marshall one that just happened. Honestly,
Hmm.
um,
Uh,
I think that gives him a viable wing option to come off the bench. I think a lot of teams need this viable wing options that come off the bench that can guard 2, 3, 4. And I think Najee Marshall gives them that. He's not to the level of the JB All Stars that he's going to give you next episode, but I think he can give you a decent minutes, especially in an NBA playoff setting. I think he can make an 8-man rotation. I think that's really what they needed instead of having Josh Green bench minutes um, and Tim Hardaway spot minutes in Game 3 when they did not need it. I think a decent little 3-and-D guy who can guard multiple positions is something that would have been beneficial for them in the finals this past year and could help propel them back to the finals next year. But KCP to the Magic, KCP, man, they're going to study his ability to get that bag. It's one thing about him. And them first couple contracts was a little because he wasn't his reputation wasn't where it was yet. He
Yeah.
wasn't a 2-time champion yet.
yeah.
But now he's just sitting on his money for the rest of his career. He'll be getting these type of contracts till he decides to retire. As long as he's able to defend and shoot the ball, he'll be getting
Hmm.
these type of contracts.
That's what's
Real
intriguing.
Ariza art. Oh,
Say it
sorry,
again.
Brian.
He said Trevor Ariza art.
Oh, this is better than Ariza.
Ariza, he a bag chaser. That boy going anywhere for a bag. I respect
No,
it.
he
But
does,
go ahead.
but Caldwell Pope actually, performs once
Ariza
he
got
gets
ring.
there. He do, but the performance
It ain't the
wasn't
same.
KCP level. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But go ahead, B. I'm sorry about
Yeah, I
that.
was just gonna say, I think I definitely like that move. I think obviously KCP is entrenched as their number two. I was gonna ask you guys, do you think? I mean, I believe that we believe that Powell is a good enough playmaker, but do you think that the Magic need a lead guard since they now have KCP? Because I don't think I'm assuming you don't want Jalen Suggs as your lead guard if you're going to be starting KCP at the two, unless you just
You
believe in Powell's
know,
playmaking that much.
this could be a situation where we're looking next offseason and say playmaking is one of their needs. They could decide to go into next season without a true point guard. I mean, some people may think Jalen Suggs is a true point guard, but he's not. They could go into this season with Jalen Suggs as their starting point guard, and just run out a lineup led by the playmaking of Franz and Paulo. I would still make an effort to go get a Tyus Jones if available, to lead the offensive unit, but a lot of that is easier said than done because the Wizards have to make him available, and the Wizards have to accept a trade, and you also still have to give up the assets to get Tyus Jones, and you may not even want to do that.
Yeah,
But maybe you go with Jalen Suggs. Hope that Anthony Black takes that next step off the bench. Markel Fultz is a free agent, so he's probably out of there. You probably don't want to spend that money on him. Um, and you might just run into Anthony Black taking a leap as your off the bench playmaker, and then running a starting lineup without that true table setter. But then you have Anthony Black who can come in and set the table if need be.
yeah, I'm with you there. I think I'm the only reason why I'm asking about the lead guard thing is just I'm a little obviously we saw in the Cleveland series it just was concerning at points to see how they were going to go get their baskets because it was just like at some points it was just like Paolo and Wagner isos, but it was real stagnant offense. So they
I,
definitely have a great foundation defensively, but I feel like in order for them to be a true contender, they have to find a way to improve their offense.
I think it has to be the right deal if they do it. I don't think this is the year to force the issue. Like if a
Yeah,
point guard who like even if it's not Tyus Jones, if somebody else becomes available, I don't think this is the year because this isn't the year you're gonna win a championship. I do think going into after you see what the playoffs is this year, depending on how the Paolo and France play, if Anthony Black does take that step as a playmaker, maybe Jalen Suggs take a step as a playmaker. Cole Anthony may take a step as a playmaker. Maybe you could move Cole Anthony for somebody else. But let this season play out. Don't force the issue. If a deal falls in your lap that you like for Tyus Jones, who can develop while still simultaneously helping you develop Anthony Black, that can be what you do. But don't force a Tyus Jones trade. Don't give up too much for Tyus Jones because you could still make a similar deal in the next offseason, if need be, with the players who could be available at that time. So my main answer is just don't force the issue because this isn't a win now team. They're a very good young team,
yeah,
but they're not in a position where they have to win now. If they would have signed a Paul George or a Klay Thompson and it felt like they would have like rushed their timeline, then maybe you need to force the issue, get a point guard. But KCP isn't rushing your timeline at all. He'll be here 3 years for 66 mil. He might sign again. So don't let KCP rush your timeline getting a point guard.
no, I agree with you there because I'm thinking in my head like obviously a guy like Trey would be intriguing, but as you just said, you probably want to wait that year, see how your team looks before you make another move. Because if you're trading for trade, then you are basically trying to accelerate your timeline. Even though I think he fits age wise timeline with the main guys.
I will say Darius Garland is made available. Orlando Magic, I will put my bid in. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Players are made available every offseason. There will be somebody available next offseason if you don't get a Darius Garland, a Trey Young, a Tyus Jones, even a Trey Jones from the Spurs if he's made available. That's somebody who could still come off the
Yeah,
bench and set the table for your offense. But if I'm the Magic, I just drafted Anthony Black, number 6 overall last year, to be my point guard. So
see what he has. Yeah,
it's not the best fit for him personally because he's probably not ready to be a primary contributor on a playoff team. But let's go. Either get on the train or get left behind, and they can get him
Yeah,
going
come
if
on.
they have to.
Get right or get
He could
left.
be the primary chip in a move to go get a Darius Garland or a Trey
mm,
Young.
See, Brian, you mentioned Trey Young, which was one of my first people I thought about in a point guard for them. And in that deal, I feel like they have to give up a lot of what makes them good.
Yeah.
Whether it's Franz being a piece, of course, you're not giving up Paolo. Um, but I feel like we may have found the right person for this Pelicans deal, man. Get CJ over there. I think that's good. I think that way they can, get some more depth. They lost Najee. Get one of them long wings they have. They have like three centers, I think. Get a center as well. I like CJ going
Are you
there.
saying CJ to
Um,
Orlando?
yeah, CJ to Orlando. I like that. I could definitely see him take that mentorship role he already took the Pelicans, and before injuries, they were the first seed in the West for the first half of the season, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, a couple years ago. I think that'd be a good fit for them for their point guard. And with that timeline, you can still age CJ out and push Anthony Black in. Cole Anthony has to go. Raquel finally can move on to somewhere and get his shot right. Um, but yeah, I like that.
I see what you're
That's
saying,
that's
but maybe it's just because I don't like pseudo point guard CJ McCollum. But I feel like if I'm doing that, he's got to come off the bench. Like I don't know if I want CJ starting.
oh, not you too, not you too. You think
CJ
CJ come off the bench
maybe like
against
CT
this?
said before, he's one of those one position players. Like he just pseudo point guard
Oh, he's
CJ
not.
just
He's
doesn't suit me.
not.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just because of all those
He's a
years he
good.
played with Dame or what it was, but just CJ at
No,
point guard
Brian,
doesn't
this
move
was
me.
this was a whole debate once we seen the Pelicans trade on Friday. When we were trying to figure out who was going to the bench.
Mm-hmm.
CJ was like the main person me and Nate were saying, but JB was highly against it. But I see what you're saying with you're saying if he goes to Orlando, you would still want him off the bench.
I'm saying I would, but I think JB wants him to start a point guard. If you're making
I
that trade
think
to
if
Orlando,
Orlando makes that move, he would have to start until he loses the job. The only thing about that is I don't want to put Jalen Suggs on the bench, but I
No,
also don't want Jalen Suggs to be my point. But so where does he play?
it's who?
Where does KCP play?
Oh, that nigga.
See, you keep doing this. You keep forgetting about people. Because I'm just
Uh,
going to go down the line. If you would have said three, I would have said, what about Franz? Then I would have said, what
what
about
about
Paulo? So
Paolo?
you
Yeah.
just, you would have
oh,
forgot about the whole lineup.
look, KCP. I know you a bag chaser.
Nah. KCP is
What you gonna
the,
do for this money, nigga?
I don't know. Because then I don't like CJ and Jalen Suggs in the starting lineup together.
Yeah,
Really, compared to who?
because at least with
What you
KCP.
like about
KCP
him?
you have because with KCP you have a two-way player or at least a 3 and D. I won't say two-way, but you have a 3 and D. Jalen
Okay.
Suggs, CJ McCollum. They're
Hold on.
like one
3
of
and
the.
D.
They're like
Hold
one or
on,
the
Let's
other.
not let this go.
JB, before you do this, KCP is textbook definition of 3 and D for the past few years. Jalen Suggs,
Okay.
while yes, he was 3 and D last year, that was a 1 year resume, and
Marcus
this
Smart.
was his best season of his career so far. So Brian does have a point. Jalen Suggs, while yes, is in that mold, has not done it
Okay.
to the level of KCP. I see you was about to jump on him
No,
about
no, no.
Jalen
I'm
Suggs.
about to get in that
Come
No.
ass.
on,
All I was saying
that
was
Jalen
Jalen Suggs
unity
is
was
is your defensive guy. CJ's your offensive guy. That's all I was trying to say. I wasn't saying that Jalen's a 3 and D guy.
Okay.
Jalen
You had
is
me.
clear
I
defensively.
agree.
I think the 3-point
You
shot
know
is what.
what? Wrong with KCP coming off the bench in the mentorship role. Nigga, 35. It's time.
CJ can't be the
He,
mentor off the
they,
bench.
No, bro, you're too good. You need to start. You gotta relieve the pressure from Franz and Paolo or whatever they, you know what I'm saying? But I like that. I'd rather have KCP come off the bench. You get your money, cool. You're gonna start sometimes because Jalen says gonna get hurt, and in playoffs we end up probably starting KCP. We being the Orlando Magic in this situation. But I
Dr.
understand what you guys are
JV
saying.
strikes again, man.
You know me. I understand what you guys are saying. You have good points, but development wise, I'm starting Suggs and bringing KCP off the bench, and you can teach these niggas how to be 3 and D role players, whatever, how to win and all that other stuff. But we weren't here to talk about it anyways. What do you think about Klay Thompson, man? I really want to get into that. That's a very interesting situation going on.
where do you think he
So
goes?
he might take less to go to another LA team.
Yeah, I think he's finally going to do what everybody was like rumoring him to do for years. I think he's going to finally, go to where his dad played. So I think he'll be a Laker. Now the question is, will he start? I feel like that's a
Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't like their lineup if he does start, but it is what it is, I guess.
What you think the lineup is?
I think it would be LeBron, Austin Reeves, Klay Thompson.
is 80 at
Who's
the
their
four.
four? No,
Rui,
no, God, no.
Rui,
Yeah,
It's
just
Rui or Jerry Vanderbilt. I guess it has to be
Rui,
Rui just because of spacing.
and
But
JJ likes Rui.
defensively, I don't like that starting lineup.
Ah, yeah,
Clay,
yeah.
LeBron, I love you, but Clay,
Yeah.
LeBron, and Austin Reeves up on the perimeter locking down. I don't see
well,
it.
do you try to move
Wait,
D'Lo to try to get like that 4 or 5 maybe? Well, to get that 4, I guess.
Well, D'Lo's gone. He opted in. They trying to trade him. I don't know where he's going, but he's gone somewhere. So I'd assume whoever they bring in for D'Lo is playing a substantial amount. Unless the Warriors make a sign and trade with Clay and D'Lo is involved in that sign and trade back to the Warriors.
D'Lo involved in
well,
another
Chris,
sign and trade.
what was the Lakers starting lineup last year? Because it still
The
wasn't.
first round exit starting lineup.
It was
Yeah.
D'Lo, Bron. Well, Bron wasn't it too, but D'Lo, Bron.
Austin
Austin Reeves was
Reeves,
starting because I remember the 6-man joke we had. AD.
Rui.
Yeah,
Was
Rui
it
and
Rui
AD, I
or
guess.
was it It was Rui, wasn't it?
Yeah, because Vanderbilt was hurt, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. What was their starting lineup for the conference finals 2 years ago?
Um,
Something
was it
similar to that,
D'Lo,
I
Austin
think.
Reeves, LeBron,
Yeah, I think it was the
AD at
same
the
exact
top?
lineup because they had
Rui.
Rui guarding Jokic at points.
I don't see any problem with that.
You don't see any problem with
You saying that
those are
they don't
losing
have
lineups. It's a losing
the
lineup.
Western Conference Finals?
It's a losing lineup. They didn't win any games.
It made it to the Western Conference Finals
And then what happened? What happened the past year?
this
With that
past year.
same
They
team.
lost to the Nuggets,
And
the
won
same
one game in
team.
the playoffs. This isn't a good. I mean, that's not a. And this is a team. This is a lineup that can't get you above the 7th seed in the Western
That's what I'm
Conference.
saying. We're talking about playing teams here, JB. Like they're not even having home games. Like, well, not home games. They're not having home series.
Um, I think we have different contexts on this. I feel like in any given playoffs, Bron's a top 5 player. Any given
Yes.
playoffs, AD is a top 20 player. 15.
Yeah. Top 10 this year,
That's,
I think.
that's better than most teams have.
Right.
We all can agree that the rest of the roster tends to underperform in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we also agree that Klay Thompson has the potential to be the best third option in the AD Bron era.
No.
He doesn't have a, oh, really? Well, most acclaimed,
Would you
most
say
accomplished.
KCP or are you
How
saying
about that?
somebody
Oh
else?
yeah.
CJ.
Well, what do you mean by most accomplished? Because they had an MVP on their roster.
You got me. You got me.
I guess he's saying team
Well,
oriented. I don't know.
I think he's the best. He's the
nah,
best
you're right.
ideal fit based off who he has been in his career.
Okay. I
But
understand
the
Austin
Klay
Reeves.
Thompson that we saw last year, um,
Yeah.
I
Tough.
I mean I get why they're doing it because the Lakers have always chased names, but I
Yeah.
do think there's a much better way to build a roster than piling on and just trying to combine the biggest names in the league. I don't think Klay Thompson is the solution to their troubles. But I do think that's what's gonna. I do think he's gonna be the. They're gonna land Klay Thompson. I do think that's where he's gonna go.
So I
I do
think he
not
helped.
think that he makes them any better than they were last year.
I agree. I think he helps him from
Mm.
a shooting perspective, but he doesn't help him as much defensively because this isn't like 2016 Clay that we're talking about.
What did D'Lo shoot last year?
Mm.
Hold
Let's
on, I'm gonna
see.
What
look.
do you think the next step with? What do you
What
think
did
makes
Clay
them
shoot
better?
last year? Somebody look up Clay. I'll look up D'Lo.
All right, I got Clay.
I know Clay shot from 3,
How much?
39%.
D'Lo was 42.
Whew.
From 3?
So yeah,
Different.
Dang.
unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, but I believe because I remember D'Lo having a really good regular season. Playoffs was another
Mm.
story, but
Mm.
Yeah,
but
Clay was
Klay Thompson
40.
shot 0 of 10 to even get his team into the playoffs. So you want to compare it to if you really want to.
Yeah, 43, 39, 93 for Clay.
I don't like that you said that. But okay. What makes the Lakers better this year, this upcoming year? What do they need to be better?
Ooh, boy, where do you want to start?
You gotta
They
have another
need
playmaker, besides Bron. Even though I
no.
mean,
Well, yes, but I think that other playmaker has to come internally. I think Austin Reeves has to take that step. Somebody who can create his own shot.
Okay.
and create for others better. I think that's what they. I think D'Lo did that pretty well, but he's gone. I think whatever they move D'Lo for, I think you have to get a better point of attack perimeter defender. They
Absolutely.
don't really have that. They have Jarrett Vanderbilt who can guard 1 through 4 basically, but I do think they need more than him defensively. Because you have an aging LeBron. Jared Vanderbilt isn't somebody who plays well with LeBron on the offensive side. So maybe you find a defender who plays well offensively with LeBron who can still defend. I think that's why Darvin Ham liked Torian Prince so well because what Torian Prince gave you on defense, even though he would have his nights where he shot 1 for 4, 1 for 5, he was the best wing they had in the playoffs other than LeBron. Lakers fans hated him the whole season. He played the best out of all of them. He shot the best. My fault. He shot the best out of all of them all playoffs. I think that's why
Yeah, that's
Darvin
true.
Ham liked him so much because he was the only wing who could at least have a consistent jump shot while trying on defense. But I do think they need a better guard defender. D'Lo wasn't cutting it. Spencer Dinwiddie wasn't cutting it. Austin Reeves hasn't been cutting it so far. Who else did they have? Gabe Vincent wasn't cutting it that well last year. He had some moments towards the end of the season, but he barely played. So I think they need a better
Hey,
guard defender who
Bronny.
has a good fit next to Braun.
I thought about that, but I didn't want to say it.
Who Bronny?
Sounds like Bronny.
Hey,
POA.
what Braun say? When they was like, "Do you think Bronny could play on this team?" He said, "Easily, easily."
Easily.
Come on,
Easily.
huh?
I made it myself.
Oh man,
That's something he would say. He would say that.
he
He
would.
would say that.
I made my perfect
Uh,
teammate.
God damn. Okay, okay, I understand that. Klay definitely fell off on defense, and nothing
And
only
then
averaged like 17.
backup five, other than Jackson Hayes, they need a.
Yeah.
They tried the
Mm,
whole Christian Wood Jackson Hayes thing. Jackson Hayes
my
going to
bad.
be there again next year, but I do think they need an actual five who can give you like spot minutes where AD can play the four. We were talking about this in the group chat. I don't want to see AD move to the four, but I do want to see a five who can play on the floor next to AD if you want to run big lineups. Like if you run into Minnesota, I'd like to see lineups where you have AD at the four guarding up against Cat and you have
Somebody
somebody else at the
guarding
five.
Bronny.
And I want to see AD be able to roam more on defense instead of guarding everybody's center. That's
Yes.
80's best defense is played when he's being able to roam, not necessarily have to guard the opposing big man every single possession down, where he can take some possessions off and he can sit on the block and just wait for somebody to come down into the paint and send the shot into the stands. Stuff like that. So if they can focus on getting a backup big, point of attack, guard defender, and just I think Dalton Connect was a great pick for them because I
For
think that
sure.
takes away one of the needs that I had is just bench scoring, bench shooting. Because Connect, for what he is a shooter, and he can create his own shot. So,
But they said JJ Redick was already drawing up plays for him, so I'm sure
of course, they said that.
I could see it because like
Hey,
JJ himself was like coming off the bench when Orlando was starting to do stuff. So
I think the only thing with the Clay thing is if that's the D'Lo move, it just concerns me because I think the D'Lo move could be better or more optimally
oh,
fit. Because that's the only thing you can do this offseason for the most part.
well, I'm
Using
assuming
that
that
money to get that level of player.
I was gonna say
Because
if they're using yeah, I was
unless
gonna ask
Clay
if he's
signs on the
using the
mid
mid
level
level.
exception, I don't think he's actually going to do that. If the option is to sign on a sign and trade and get the money that he wants from Golden State that
Mm-hmm.
LA is willing to offer, I think he does that. But if he signs on a mid level exception and you're still able to move D'Lo for somebody on a comparable contract, then you probably have a much better offseason. So if I'm the
mhm.
Lakers, if I'm Lakers fans, I'm hoping that Clay signs on a mid level exception, and you can move D'Lo for a DeAndre Hunter, somebody like that. But I don't know. You gotta have people do business with you. You can't just hypothetically throw these names out because D'Angelo Russell don't fit in Atlanta unless they just want to
But
hold
unless
on
you
to
move
him
in
for.
Trey,
Are you comfortable moving D'Lo for pieces rather than one specific player?
I mean, if the 2 pieces or 3 pieces or however many you get can give you real minutes, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be 2 pieces and the one piece is somebody who can compete for you, but the second piece isn't able to give you
Nah.
real minutes.
No, I'm talking about two pieces that fit the mold in which you're talking about. A center capable of playing as to AD, and then a backup guard who
But are
fit
you
there.
getting that for what is D'Lo making? 18.
I'm not sure. I think that sounds right. I think 17.9 is the number I saw,
You
something
got
like
to be
that.
able to get those 2 pieces in that contract. So
I,
unless you
I
give up
expect them to
D'Lo
be
and somebody else in that deal. But yeah, if you can get the two pieces that way, that's fine.
okay. I was just
My
curious.
whole
That's
my
all.
whole thing is filling those needs with the D'Lo contract and not trying to use the D'Lo contract for Klay Thompson. That's my whole thing. I
Yeah,
think the D'Lo contract could be better used than getting Klay Thompson. That's my whole thing.
I will
that
cook
makes
something
sense.
up.
And D'Lo is making 18 million.
That's what I thought.
Mm. You saw the
Let's
video he
see.
dropped
Let's
today?
say it again.
You saw the video he dropped today?
Who?
D'Lo.
D'Lo?
D'Lo.
I seen him on.
Yeah.
I seen people on Twitter talking about him.
Yeah, he was hooping and with blonde braids and all that. He said it's a new D'Lo this season.
Yeah, that's not true.
Just like last season, he said he'd be Derek White, and Derek White got better than him. Out of the natural
Yeah. I
season.
don't know. I don't know why he ever said that. That was
He
such
thought he was
terrible
trying.
work.
Somehow Derek White got better than him and proved us all wrong.
Yeah, because he was better than Derek White. I don't know why he
He
said
was better
that.
than him. Look, what do
he
you mean by that?
was better than Derek White. I don't. Yeah. So
That's
think
hilarious.
for the most part we've covered what has happened so far today. Paul George. Paul George. We waiting.
Yeah,
We waiting.
yeah.
Phone's still ringing. We still waiting for the logistics to be worked out. But I think as of right now, Philly is in the lead of the clubhouse. Um, my own personal bias, I'm gonna try to sway him a different way. Try to tell him Philly's not the way because
Yeah,
I don't want to root against him because I hate Philly. I don't want to have to root against him, and he gonna be with Embiid. I can't do it. And
I say
then
the only long shot I can
he
see
go,
is Golden
and he
State,
gonna
but I
have
don't think.
Embiid. He gonna have Embiid on the podcast. Can't do it. Can't do it. I don't even know. Does the podcast continue if he goes to Philadelphia? His whole.
That's a good question.
I wish Golden State would have
Well, I mean,
just
I guess they could do it like how Draymond would do it, where like you're on the laptop, so you just would have to.
see. That's why Draymond's podcast sucks.
Oh,
Dang.
oh, snap. Be beefing with Draymond podcast?
No, I mean it's just not better than Paul George's.
That's that's true. I'm still beefing with him. I just want to start some. That's all.
Oh, nah, he ain't gonna respond to
Yeah, just about
us.
to say he not responded to us, man.
What y'all think about PG 76? That's what the rumors are saying. What y'all think?
I think if you get, I would want to see the surrounding moves, obviously, but I think if they were to get Paul George, they would have a very strong case for being that team along with New York for in the running for second best team in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, you can't count Milwaukee out as well. It's considering that they still have Dame and Giannis, but it's going to be interesting to see how they do this year, especially since it looks like Doc Rivers is still going to be their head coach. Um, yeah, so that's what I would think there. Honestly, as crazy as this sounds, I guess just like from an NBA fan perspective, I would prefer, and maybe people are gonna say I'm saying this because I'm a Celtics fan, but I would prefer to see Golden State actually like find a way to clear enough cap space to get PG, because Steph and PG does seem a little is intriguing to me, especially considering what like say PG was able to do with Russell Westbrook. So seeing him with say a Steph Curry as a second option would be really intriguing to me. But it seems like all signs are pointed towards Philadelphia. But we'll see. And if not, well, and if it doesn't happen during this episode, I'm sure we'll have a CT TikTok ready. So
Yeah, it don't look like it's gonna happen during this episode, man. It's like I said, the phones are still ringing, so people are still reaching out. But Philly got them locked in the office right now, so I don't know. They
DeAndre
might
Jordan style.
they trying to get it. They trying to
That's
get
crazy.
this wrapped up. Paul George, he's trying to hear offers from a lot of people right now. That's the whole issue.
Got you.
Yeah, but you know how that go.
Got to drive the
Um,
price up, man.
my thoughts. I think Philly is in the same situation as you talked about the Lakers, who are just chasing big names.
Yes.
Hmm.
Um, I think Paul
Well, wait, hold
George
on.
is cool.
It's not just a big name.
I thought. I thought.
This
He's
is
good.
yeah.
Chasing stars.
He's a good big name.
He's a good big name. Yeah. I like it for the Sixers, but I want to see, like Brian said, how you flesh out the rest of your roster. I think that's the issue every year. You get yourself a third star, You got lucky with Maxey becoming as good as he is, and now you're trying to find a third star again. Are you going to diminish him like he did Tobias Harris? Are you gonna let them? They always have problems with that, man. It's interesting to see who they pick. And Paul George, sorry, I'm going to say it. I'm going to use my words on this one. He doesn't shine best in big moments since 2014, just 10 years ago now. And that's been a trend for most players in
I'm
Philly.
not gonna let you do that. Not gonna let you do that. It has not
2020.
been.
Can't get away
It
with
has
that.
not been since 2014. I will not let you all lie. I will take a lot of Paul George
Exactly.
slander, but 2021 he rose to the occasion. So please, let's say
My
since
apologies.
20.
One time since 2014.
All right, that works.
Cool.
That works. All right,
Yeah.
Ryan, please go ahead.
I was gonna say if Paul George ends up with the Sixers, I would assume that at that point you're telling Tyrese Maxey, all right, we need you to be the playmaker. We need you to be the league. We need you to be a point guard because Paul George. I feel like Paul George is automatically gets put in that number two role. Um,
Yeah.
so that way he doesn't end up in a Tobias Harris situation. I think that would make more sense. And I think in the regular season, just to get the pecking order, like not even to get the pecking order determined, but I think at least like within the first 10, 15 games of the season, if it's every close game, every opportunity, I'm giving the ball to Paul George down the stretch and I'm making him like, and I'm setting him up
Oh,
as if to say, come playoff time, like we're gonna need you to be that guy. So I'm putting it in. I'm like basically giving him the ball as much as possible down the stretch each game. Obviously, you want to keep Embiid involved and stuff like that, but you need. But I'm telling Paul George like you have to be the guy like to make the tough shots to make the plays down the stretch because the ball's probably going to be in his hands most in like the last 3 to 5 minutes because he can play make. He can also create his own shot. So theoretically, if I'm Nick Nurse, I'm getting that in Paul. If Paul George does sign with them, I'm getting that in his head right now that you have to be the guy down the stretch in order for us to win games.
I think I think the Philly fit intrigues me because Paul doesn't necessarily have to do all the things that you just said if he goes to Philly. I think if all things go well for Philly, that's hoping that Embiid stays healthy for most of the season. Embiid is your clear, established number one option that you hope continues to perform during playoff time. Um, and then Tyrese Maxey is your young star who, for the
Mhm.
most part, most games as the point guard by default will be your number two option over the star wing. Just because he'll have the ball in his hands more, he'll be able to determine more things in the offense. So he'll just naturally, I feel like, take more shots than Paul George. And then Paul George is the guy who your secondary playmaker, but also is able to catch and shoot, play off the catch, read closeouts more so than he did with the Clippers the first couple of years. Once James Harden got there last year, he was able to play a little bit more off ball. But I feel like at his age, I feel like that's fine for Paul George. I don't think Philly is signing him to be their savior necessarily, like somebody to come in and shot clock
Interesting.
cheese and hit game winners. I feel like the people that are on that roster should be doing that already. So it's like what JB is saying. Like Paul George is a name that they're chasing, but he shouldn't be the end all be all of their offseason. If they don't get Paul George, they should still find a way to have a successful offseason, especially considering the cap space that they have. So I feel like if they don't land Paul George, I mean, they land Paul George, right?
Yeah,
But having him does not determine your season and how you run your offense. I feel like Tyrese Maxey still could have the ball in his hands down the stretch because he's not as inexperienced as other young guards are because we saw it in this playoffs. He took the Knicks to what was it, 6 games
yeah,
and had a great, what was it, game four, game five. And then Joel Embiid, league MVP, he should be able to get the job done with Maxey and supporting pieces. So Paul George
Mhm.
should be able to come in, find a role, and fit in. And I don't think his role should be the game closer. I don't think his role should be the late game shot creator. I think that's where stuff went wrong in LA But I think stuff in LA just went wrong because it was the Clippers, in my opinion. I think it's something in the air up there. I mean, over there, it has to be. But if you take him out of that late game shot creation role, I feel like he'll have more success with this Sixers team. Because more responsibility is on the plate of the people who are already there and have already, well, should have already had success on that team.
So I understand what y'all are saying, and maybe it's just me like looking at history, more so than just like obviously what the team structure is right now. And I'm not saying that they're going to be this duo or that they are anywhere close to this duo. But like even with say like a Shaq and Kobe, like Shaq obviously was the dominant guy. He was the number.
He was some wild ass thing.
No, I'm just saying he was the number one guy. He was the dominant guy, but the guy down the stretch taking shots was Kobe. So all I'm saying is I can see I can see where Maxey would be that guy if we're saying he's going to have the ball in his hands. But I'm just thinking I have a 6'8" wing who can create shots for himself and is a pretty good playmaker. Theoretically, I'm thinking he might be the guy down the stretch with the ball in his hands. That's why I'm thinking that the thought would be, all right, we need you to be the closer down the stretch.
Well, may I add a point? As I already talked about with Paul George, Brian, what have we seen since 2014? Only one time. This nigga ain't closing shit but doors. Can't do it. He ain't got it. He got mental health issues. I respect it. He acknowledged that he's a 2 when really he's a 3. He ain't been a good 2 to Kawhi. Well, I take that back. It's not fair because Kawhi been missing. He had to be a 1. I take that back. I'm sorry.
You say need
I'm about to say Paul George hasn't been able to be a 2 in a couple of years
true.
now.
I agree with that. Right. That's not as fair. He's had to be a 1 a good amount of times. But even this playoff should be a 1, right? Kawhi got hurt?
Yes.
Yeah. He hasn't really had a chance to be a 2 like he really wanted to be. But it's okay because he can be a 3 now. It's cool. He's overqualified. That's exactly what he needs to be. 3. Once you're overqualified, you can then not meet expectations. We're not mad at it. Well, I've done it my whole life. Nothing wrong with that. So I think it could be a good
fit. But it's Paul George, so they still gonna be mad.
I'm gonna be mad just cause it's off name. That's all.
Right. It's like Tobias Harris. It was Tobias Harris. He was the third option. They were still mad at him, but he's way worse. But that just goes to show that you could be the third option, they'll still be mad. Because if Embiid is hurt, you're not the second option.
Yeah.
And Embiid being hurt is a very likely possibility given the track record.
And I think Paul George has been their best third option, which is cool. But does this raise their ceiling higher than what it was this year? I don't know.
Depends on how much of an improvement you think he is over Tobias in the things that Tobias was asked to do.
Now, I think Tobias is, again, a good third star, but I think Paul George has the potential to raise it. He hasn't shown it many times, but as a third option, he has the potential to raise his game higher than what Tobias Harris does. So that's good. But now I'm just worried about, like I said earlier, the rest of the roster. Like, how do you guys feel that out? Being the Sixers, how do they feel that out? And that just remains to be seen. So I like that. Are there any other teams you see Paul George being a good fit on outside the Sixers?
This is the type of player that you really just drop and play anywhere. Real positionless basketball. He could play your 2, could play your 3. He could give you some small ball 4 minutes as well. He could even give you a bit of a shot creation and playmaking at the 1 in spurts. So depending on where you need him, wherever you want him, he could go anywhere. But if you want to look at just contenders, it's like, what do we even gauge as a contender these days? I really liked the Knicks before they made all those moves.
Yeah.
But that's not the case anymore. Then we look at you look at the Pelicans, like you mentioned, like the Brandon Ingram, Paul George swap, and then you look at the Timberwolves, maybe a Paul George, Karl Anthony Towns swap. Ooh. And then maybe you look down at Houston and say, how does he fit in the Ime Udoka coaching plan? So there's a lot of places. All the places will go. Paul George.
If he goes to Houston, there must be a Kevin Durant trade coming.
It'll just sound great because it's Paul George. Anywhere you put him.
I'm about to say that. One thing about your boy, no matter where you put him, it sound good. Like that's
OKC.
Hey, Sacramento. Hey, everywhere. Hey,
that might be a little bit too much dip on the chip right there.
It's so many better options than Philly. I feel like
even Honestly, I know we just talked about how they need to take another year, and maybe if they would only work through sign and trade, but like maybe Orlando, like you probably had to move Franz to do it, Franz and like Jonathan Isaac to do it, but like I could
I
see
think they can sign him
Orlando.
outright though. I think they got the money to sign him.
That is true.
They do have the money, but they will have to renounce Jonathan Isaac's rights. So they might sign and
Sign and
trade
trade at
Jonathan
that point.
Isaac,
So
make
yeah.
it to get it done.
Yeah. Send him to Utah.
You know, I
That's the
mean,
wrong
Golden
nigga.
State, man, Golden State could have got it done, and maybe they still can because if Klay agrees to because Klay's taking an interview with the Clippers, I believe. So if Klay decides to go to the Clippers, and then Paul George decides he wants to go to the Warriors. Bing boom, switch them off, and
Well, it sounded like they
you
said the
got
Clippers didn't want to move him to the Warriors, though. That's what I'm.
yeah. But if the
Yeah.
Clippers want Klay Thompson, they might have to move him to the Warriors. So
Good
they
point.
because
Good
I don't
point.
think the
Yeah.
Clippers have money to sign Klay Thompson outright.
Yeah,
So they
you're
would
right.
have
You're
to
right.
You gotta
just
get something back. You gotta get something back with Paul George, man. You can't let him just walk.
it's very possible that he just walks though.
It's
It's
yeah,
very
it is.
likely given all the reports that we're
Especially
seeing.
since the Clippers put out a whole statement. I ain't never seen a team do that.
What was the statement?
Basically announcing that he wasn't going to be coming back. Like
Yeah, you ain't
they
see
came
that?
to a mutual agreement.
He's not.
I did
They
not
already
see
announced
that.
he's not returning. Yeah, they said they
Oh,
had their meeting today and with Lawrence Frank and Paul George is not returning to the team. We're free.
dang. The chains are broken.
We did it. We did
We
it,
did
Paul.
it!
We did it. We did it, Paul.
We did it.
Wow. Dang, what happens to the podcast now? Is it just moving
I'm
locations?
saying I don't think this podcast goes on the road the proper way because you know that co-host they got is a Hollywood actor guy, so I don't
Yeah,
think he's
that's what I'm
leaving
saying.
LA
I
to do
think
no
they would
podcast.
have to do it virtually. That's what I'm saying.
Not
Hold
doing
on.
it virtual.
What's his
That
name? You don't know his name?
who?
The co-host on the pod. You don't know his name?
I lose it.
Jackie Long.
Yeah,
Jackie Long, man. Jackie
Jackie Long.
Long.
That's his
ATL
name.
Gray.
My bad.
Come on, man. This is black knowledge.
My bad. You know,
Yeah,
black
it
science.
was. Yeah. I'm Dominican. I'm Dominican. Oh man. All right. Okay.
I don't know whether to
But I
cut
think
this
that
or
pretty
not. I
much.
don't know.
I think that pretty much wraps up of today so far, right?
Yeah, unless there's any last minute breaking news, I think we can close out.
I say we already talked about
Yeah.
Najee. We talked about Jonas. We talked about everybody. I think we talked about everybody. So
Yeah.
very
That's it.
interesting day one. This feels like a day like people have been saying on Twitter. This feels like a day 4 or day 5 type day.
Yeah,
In most free
very
agencies.
underwhelming. KCP was the biggest name that signed so far, and there were no trades made, no Brook Lopez deals, no Klay Thompson sign and trade, no Paul George sign and trade. So we'll just wait. You know, this could be a scenario where we just get it at 5 o'clock in the morning and just have to accept it. So
TT
until
TikTok
then,
at 6 in the morning.
You know
no.
that.
Until then, we will be sure to keep you all updated. This episode will be dropping very soon, given the nature of free agency. We appreciate you all watching. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to stay tuned for the next play.